If you're someone who wants to take better decisions, if you're someone who wants to be more aware of how to take the right decisions, or if you're someone just getting started with the science of decision making, today's book review is going to be super useful for you. Let's get started. Hey folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Praveen Ramesh, and on this channel we speak about non-fiction books, and I also speak about lessons that I'm personally learning by reading these books. I find it immensely useful. I hope you do too. As I said at the start, today we're going to be speaking about decision making via the lens of one of the best books I read this year called Thinking in Bets. In case you're here for the first time, I've spoken about this book in my Jan or Feb roundup, where this has already become my most recommended book for people who just want to get started with non-fiction, right? So I'm going to be speaking about this book in two parts, where first one we are going to be speaking about the pitfalls in decision making, as the author Annie Duke calls it, and in the second part I'm going to be speaking about the tactics and other things that are discussed in this book to take better decisions. So let's get started with the first pitfall, which is controlling the outcome, right? So here is what happens with most decision making. You think of a scenario and you think of an outcome, right? The number one mistake as humans we make is we think that we can control the outcome of every problem that's thrown at us, right? So we imagine this, a big game of life where we have to take multiple decisions, and we think of this game as a chess, right? I make a move and I exactly know what my opponent's move is, and we are imagining that, okay, for every move that I make, I'm going to know what the exact outcome is. But in real life, that's rarely the case, right? So life is more like a poker where you might still lose a hand even after having two aces, right? Because if you're not aware, in a poker, it's not just about the kind of cards that you get, it's also about how your opponent plays. It's also about who is bluffing better. It's also about what other people have got as their cards, or what do they have in their hand. As with poker, there are a lot of uncertainties, right? And just a call out, the author of this book is also a champion poker player, right? So she has drawn a lot of her examples in this book from poker, right? So getting back to this book, the Pitfall, where every decision you take is filled with a lot of uncertainties, but rarely do we you can, one, account for all of them, and two, even if you try to account, you're just going to be fooling yourself, because there are so many uncertainties that are filled with every decision. So the first thing you have to take it into your mind is to imagine that you cannot control the outcome of every decision we take. So that's the pitfall number one. Pitfall number two is called resulting, right? So what is resulting? Resulting is you evaluating the quality of a decision with the quality of the outcome, right? So you think that, okay, a decision has gone great because the outcome was good, or you think that that was a bad decision because things didn't go too well, right? But again, as I said in the first point, what we are failing to account at this point in time is the amount of uncertainty involved with each decision, which are out of your control. So rarely do bad outcomes make for bad decisions. It could be a good decision given the context that you had. It's just that the outcome didn't go your way. That doesn't make it a bad decision. Similarly, you could have taken a bad decision that resulted in a good outcome, but that doesn't mean that this decision was good. It's just that all the uncontrollables came in your favor for that decision to go your way. So we have to understand these fundamental differences for us to take good decisions. But before we take delve any further into how do you take better decisions, it's important to understand, hey, how do you take good, bad, or let's say neutral decisions, right? The author speaks about this cyclic framework where most of our decisions is based on the exposure that we have. I hope you're able to see the cycle. And these exposure helps us in forming a belief, and these beliefs help us drive decisions, right? So again, this is precisely the premise of a book called Think Again, which again I've reviewed on this channel. You can find it either in the link above or in the description, where where Adam Grant also discusses about how a judgment or the political preacher or prosecutor mode stops us from thinking on other angles, right? So let's say I am of opinion that people with side hustle wouldn't make for good employees, right? So I'm completely cutting off people who could make great employees for a company, but who also have side hustles, right? So here my belief is that my exposure is that I've had like one or two people who have side hustles who didn't work well, then I'm forming a belief that people with side hustles don't make for good employees, and then I drive my decision through this, right? And now I'm thinking, let's say even if my company is doing half decently well, I go on in a cycle to think that okay, I've made great decisions, but in reality, do you think it's a good decision? Probably not, right? So again, so the moment you stop exposing yourself to various, kind of decisions, various things, various beliefs, you're not going to make quality decisions. So in order for us to take, better decisions, the author kind of outlines a lot of tactics towards the end of this book. I'm just going to run a few of them based on real life examples, right? The first one is having a good buddy group, right? That's the first way to make better decisions, where again the author discusses the characteristics and the nuances of having an exploratory group and a confirmatory group, right? So exploratory groups of people are those who have different opinions on the same thing, right? So imagine my case, right? I come from a tech marketing background, and most of my colleagues and friends happen to be in the tech marketing space. So let's say I go and present to them a professional or a personal problem, they're far more likely to have the same beliefs and same exposure as me. So they are going to say the same things that I believe in. So my decision is going to be pretty one-dimensional, or let's say unidirectional, right? So imagine I have a group of friends, one of whom is a psychiatrist, one of whom is in a completely unrelated engineering field, one of whom is in a non-profit organization and things like that. So I'm far more likely to receive wider group of beliefs and opinions, and that's going to refine my decision-making process. So always have a buddy group that's slightly exploratory in nature. And how do you have that? Have people who think drastically different from you, have people who question every decision you take, and all those kind of things. The second one, how do you avoid taking bad decisions, or how do you increase your probability of making good decisions? Avoid the tilt. Right? So tilt is something like this, right? You've taken a series of bad decisions. Imagine you being in a casino or really having a bad work day where things haven't gone your way from the start of the day. So let's say at the end of the day you have to make a decision. You feel like nothing is going my way. Probably you just take a decision in an emotion that might turn out to be the wrong way, right? So this is what Annie Duke terms it as a tilt, right? So you're far more likely to blow your outcomes out of proportion when you're in a tilt, both for positives and negatives, right? So imagine you are very exhausted in the day and someone comes and asks you for a favor. You're far more likely to shout at them, or be angry on them, or make a decision in a haste that will just quickly get you out of that problem. But for all that, that might end up being a bad decision. Similarly, let's say you're playing for long times in a casino in a hope that you're going to win, and you feel that suddenly things aren't going your way, and you're thinking, okay, maybe I should invest more, or maybe I shouldn't. That's a tilt, and then you should just pause your decision making, step back, get some sleep, or get a drink, and then just relax out, right? So that's always do avoid the tilt. Third one, avoid temporal discounting. So what is temporal discounting? So temporal discounting is you doing actions now that discounts what your future self is, right? So again, I think we have discussed this enough in our other videos where we speak about how your actions need to reaffirm what your identity is, right? So let's say I want to, let's say again, I go back to my favorite example in all the videos that I've covered, is I want to be a mindful person. So every time I pick up a phone, if I'm not reminding myself, I end up scrolling social media, I'm doing a temporal discounting there. Now imagine this being done to a lot of, let's say, financial decisions, personal decisions, professional decisions, where you discount how your future self wants to be, and you're doing something just for a short-term gain, right? You're far more likely to end up taking a series of bad decisions that will end up affecting your future self. So that's temporal discounting. Fourth one, avoid making decisions in a ticker phenomenon. Here is a small graph for you. I'm not going to name which company's stock price this is, but if you're going to see through the years, let's say you got this stock somewhere in 2009 or 10, right? So you're going to see that, okay, the stock price is falling, and here is a video of a graph of the stock currently, right? From 2020 it has started raising dramatically, right? So imagine you are somewhere between 2014 and 16, you're going to feel like, nothing is going my way, you're going to be very frustrated, you're going to make some decisions that might not seem good on the long term. So always imagine if you're taking a decision, hey, is this the decision that's going to change how I'm going to see things 5 years down the line? So be slightly more scientific rather than taking a decision based on the short-term stress or short-term outcomes that you're seeing your way, right? And the author also discusses a couple of other techniques. One is scenario planning, where you attribute multiple scenarios to a single decision, right? So here is how that looks in practice. So you can imagine, okay, you're taking a decision now, map out scenario A, scenario B, scenario C, scenario D. What are you doing here effectively? You're just being mentally and physically and emotionally prepared for every kind of outcome out there. Again, always imagine that even though you might do all the scenario planning, there are a ton of things that you don't control, and you might still have an outcome that you don't expect or map out, right? Backcasting, right? Or let's say pre-mortem, where you think, okay, hey, here is where I need to be, what are the actions that I need to take today? So imagine your final destination and then backtrack all your decisions from there. So again, the author discusses a lot of things on how to take better decisions or improve your probability of taking better decisions. So, in essence for me, this book taught me one thing, right? Is the simple fact that, anything that happens to me, I don't completely control. I can just improve my probability of good decisions that I take and hope that everything else falls in place, right? And there is a few frameworks and scenarios that the author has discussed. I try to employ them just to improve my probability of good decisions and not be sure that, okay, this is the best decision, because there are tons of things that you don't control. So take life a bit easy and take better decisions, hopefully, and you will be at a place that you want to be. I hope you enjoyed this book review. If you did, do let me know what you want me to review next. Until I see you in the next video, this is Praveen Ramesh signing off.